YouTube, we're back with the ASH26 by CMPro. Tonight, I want to do a short project, and that short project is gonna, well, because we have the servo for the retract and doors, the servo installed for the rudder, and then the servo installed for the elevator. The servos are also installed for the ailerons. Of course, we have to get the wings taken care of, particularly how they adjoin to the fuse. But that may not be so far off. But I keep coming back to, at some point, I'm going to have to actually put the stuff in the plane. And I hate this step because I have to make another commitment to positioning. And I'm very nervous about being able to fit my battery in here. Now, I don't know exactly what size I'm going to go with, and I'm not even necessarily suggesting that this is a good analog, but this is a 45C pack that's puffed pretty bad, 3S, 2200 milliamp. And just to give you an idea of the size, because it's so puffed, this would almost be almost like a 4S. But the other thing is, without the wings attached, positioning the battery is probably a moot point at this point. But the thing is, like, I'm not sure how the heck I'm going to do this. I know it's going to be tight. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to get away with a pack this big. I may have to do like a 1200 milliamp pack or a 1300 milliamp pack like this and try to get it up here. Or alternatively, I may have to take out some of this tray. So I'm sort of resistant to doing that at this point. I think I'm gonna come back to that if I have to. So for now, what I'd like to do is I'd like all the wires to come out at the same point. And I think it's time to get this buried. And for that reason, we're gonna grab some forceps. Grab some forceps, a couple different pairs, one with straight and one with bent tips. I always seem to use the ones with the bent tips no matter what I'm doing, it seems like. Okay, so we'll basically feed that through. And we already know how these are going to wire up. We got them marked, so that's not really a big mystery. And we know that at some point the XT60 and power wire is going to have to come back out. So at this point, and that's not to say this is a permanent thing, that power wire is probably just going to come out where the rest of the wires come out for the moment. And not that I have a huge issue with that for a permanent solution, but for the moment, that's just the way it's going to be. I mean, there's still some things I may end up changing on this anyway, so not a big deal. This will be something that we'll be able to change. Okay, so I got that through the hole. Now the tricky part comes. If you guys are curious about how I landed on this particular ESC, you can watch some of my earlier videos. Got some more information on that. Now, if you recall a while back when we tried to do this, we were running into problems with the S-back. There's a chip on there for the switching BEC, the S-back. And I just didn't try very hard, so I guess it's in there now. That was actually quite easy. And to be honest with you, I'm not super concerned with this thing moving. But let's just be honest, you don't want your CG to shift wildly while flying. But I'm not seeing that there's going to be a ton of extra wire here. So what I'm wondering about is if I can get that cock to the side, maybe I can run that. It'd be ideal to have those capacitors pointed forward to catch some of the draft from the inlet through the turbo spinner here. But I'm not 100% sure that's going to work, because I just don't have enough time to, or I don't have enough room to negotiate it in here. Not without redoing all the wiring, which, I mean, is always an option, of course. Well, let's land these wires right now, since we kind of generally know what we're up against at this juncture. Just grab this masking tape, is just holding these up against the wall. Of course, we'll have to do something like that to keep these wires from getting hit in the bell housing of the motor. So I guess we'll just start with this one. This one's green. So grab the green lead. Okay, so we got the, I want to do them in order so I can make them neat as possible. There's red. And here's blue. It's very exciting to see all this stuff coming together. But that doesn't mean it's going to be real super easy process. Here's a 2S pack, guys, and that was another thought I had, was if I went with like a 2S pack, if I have enough power, which I don't think it's going to be that great. Save a little bit of weight, but I don't think I'm going to have enough power to do a self-launch. Might be able to sustain flight, but I don't think I'll be able to self-launch. So, okay. So now that I have that kind of through, I just have to struggle through the proposition of getting all these wires to manipulate into the position I want, which is not working out very good right now. Now the other thing is I may have to make an extension cord, but again, weight is the general enemy of all planes, but especially when you're trying to make an efficient sailplane, which, by the way, I'm still a little bit weirded out when I hear these things referred to as ships, but I guess they do have a rudder. If somebody could explain that, that would be cool. It shouldn't be that hard, but evidently it is. Yeah, I'm just not going to have enough length to reach through to where I had hoped to end the wires. I'd really hoped that this would reach all the way in. But honestly, this might work okay. I suspect it'll be fine. And what I can do to secure the ESC so it's not flopping around, which is not going to be real rocket science-y here, but it's going to be consistent with just probably throwing a zip tie, you know, in this area, or poking a couple of holes and then doing a zip tie through there. I might even be able to get away with just doing a zip tie here. In fact, you know what? I think at this point it's time to make some commitments that are totally revocable. See? Zip ties, guys. We're going to zip tie these in. Since there's no more servos to add on the fuse at this point, Should be a pretty straightforward process. I do have to figure out if I'm going to put little jumpers. I think I should go through and then back out this one. Be able to get a nicer coupling there. Okay, so we'll just double that back up on itself. Need one more 90, maybe even two. There's one. Okay, so now we can reach in there and grab that zip tie. Okay, so now one more crack at trying to just kind of get everything tidy. If this plane ends up being anything other than nose heavy with my battery system that I pick, I could take and make some sort of an assembly that holds this down. For now, the assembly that holds it down could be, reluctantly, it might end up being a zip tie that's CA'd in, or if I can get it tied here sufficient that it doesn't want to move around, then that would be also satisfactory in my book. Need a different type of side cutter. This kind works good for this step. Just pulling it tight and then clipping it. So doesn't seem like a big step, and it you know, truthfully, this is really not too tough, but it is an important step, and I don't know how much lead I'm going to need. I'm sort of reluctant to yank on this wire like this, but I got to get this thing positioned where I want it. I could also run it sideways here, which would bring the mass forward just slightly. I suspect I'm going to need the mass forward. But it just depends on where the battery needs to be plugged in as to whether I want this coming out this hole or if I want it coming out that hole, coming out there and then pointing into that cavity. I would be able to more adequately control this thing, though. That's an interesting, tantalizing proposition. Well, let's plug in the throttle channel, which of course would be for the ESC. Let's get that plugged back in real quick. So as you can see, we got a little bit of extra there. Won't need that much necessarily. So I kind of like the idea of coming up the other hole with this. So I'm going to go ahead and feed this through. Okay, there we go. Just grab and rotate, grab and rotate, grab and rotate, but just a real gentle grab. You don't want to grab so hard that it rips through the silicone at all. So I'm actually not grabbing hard at all. I'm just sort of supporting it. I suspect it's going to be very challenging to actually get that back up through the hole. This one's a little longer than this, so it might be a little bit easier. The other thing is, if this ends up working out nice the way I've got it, I could actually fix that XT60 straight onto the board so that my pack is placed something like so in here, which should be sweet because then I wouldn't have to do really any modifications except for maybe a couple of straps or something to hold the pack. You just don't want it to hit the motor because the bell housing will be spinning at a high rate. But I kind of doubt that right now, so I'm just going to push it back to where I was planning on going with it, which is through that front hole. This is a little on the awkward side, guys. Oops. There we go. Come on now. Having a heck of a time getting the thing to pivot from this angle. And I will be victorious, it's just how much stuff am I going to break doing it. Okay. Yeah, we just kind of squished the case a little bit. Didn't hurt anything, of course. That actually went surprisingly decent. I'm really surprised how well that went. Okay, so now that we have those separate components there, what I've got to do is I got to decide on if I'm going to tie the whole assembly in there, possibly with just what, a zip tie maybe? Maybe I'm just going to leave it. Ian had recommended that I make sure that those capacitors are pointed forward so as to kind of keep them from getting overheated. And I'm just trying to be nice about the way this positions itself. And I have the heatsink pointed upright. I mean, provided we're an upright flight. I mean, I don't do a ton of upside down flying. I know some guys get into that a lot. And I will occasionally go upside down, but I'm not going to sit here and do sustained upside down flight for too long. So I'm not really worried about the heatsink being in the wrong orientation. Plus, right now where it's situated, it has to have airflow around it because there's nothing blocking it like a piece of foam or anything like that. And I sometimes bog myself down with such items. So now I think I might actually go with, I don't know, maybe a zip tie that's big like this is just too heavy. I might just do a number of smaller zip ties. Or wait, do I have longer ones here? I do have some here, but they're not that much shorter or longer. So maybe I'll just, yeah, I don't think that's going to reach back out. So I'll just pair these up. We could compare the weight on the scale, but I don't want to waste my life on that. It's way too much like real work. Okay, so we're going to get a couple of different bends in here. And you notice we have already got the tail cut there. Okay, so now that we can see that tail coming up, go ahead and peel that through here. There it goes. And guys, this portion of a build, it's just really highly subjective. So, you know, if you don't like the way I'm doing this, just do it when you're doing your own plane. Just do it your way, you know. And that's not to say that there's not more than one right way to do this. Hey, look at that. I am pretty close to actually potentially being able to get that with one zip tie. That'd be kind of handy, actually. Well, either way, it's not really that critical one way or another. I think we're okay the way we're doing it, though. I'm just wondering, do I want to do another zip tie here, which will lock those wires into that position? I don't know on that for sure. Definitely like the way that turned out, though. Now those power wires too, that's the other thing for me to keep in mind, is that those power wires, it would be really nice if I could tuck down the unused portion, but again, I don't know exactly where the battery needs to be yet to get the proper CG yet. So, but it would be sure nice to know for sure that I'm not gonna accidentally yank on it, you know, and damage something. So I think I'm going to go ahead and throw a zip tie just to hold that wire in that position. Plus later we can go in and change this fairly easy, so no harm, no foul. We'll just waste a zip tie if we have to. They're cheap at least. Now, the only problem is I meant for that to go the other way. Dang it. Well, I didn't think I would be wasting it that quick. I'll throw that out. Same theory. Try again. So, really, I guess the moral of the story tonight is we're to try to get this thing tidied up so that it's getting as close as possible to flight. And it's uncommon that I would do this stuff on a weeknight, but this week I've just said to myself, self, you need to get something done a little bit every night. And here we are, almost done. Now, I had a lot of it done already. I'm just kind of getting a little bit of progress every night. But I guess if you just wait until the weekend, then you end up having one part of the project that requires an epoxy, and next thing you know, you're waiting around until the next day to continue the progress. So I'm just trying to avoid that right now. See if I can actually get this thing done. I really want to see this thing fly. It's such a sweet plane. Sailplane, whatever. And I've got 2 more sailplanes there waiting for me too, which does tend to instigate my current level of urgency. Alright, cool. So we got those things situated. I would like to secure the ESC with another zip tie as well, just so it can't shift back and forth and then totally undo what our efforts here. Plus that'll keep it square. I would really like to see if I can get it around there without having to. So that's what I'm going to work on now. And if I can get it with one, then I'll redo the other side as well. Okay, so we can definitely reach through. Guys, these forceps, if you're new in the hobby, which I'm guessing you're probably not watching this video, but if you are new in the hobby and you don't have a pair of these things yet, boy, they are one of the tools that you'll think, oh no, that's just a convenience. Well, some planes it's a convenience, other planes it's an absolute necessity. You start having to reach inside of planes and you will need a pair of forceps. And even though it seems weird, I know I've talked about this a lot, the bendy tip are the ones that you're going to use all the time. Of course, now I've got the straight ones involved too. Gosh, I'm having a heck of a time doing this. But here's the thing: if you get another pair of bendy tips, then you'll be able to kill it. You know, it's just going to be so much easier. That is getting to be a real pain in the neck. Okay, good. I got a hold of the tail. Now I just need to position it and I can start getting it to... Oh, come on. Oh, that's what I was afraid of. It doesn't quite reach. Sorry, guys. But at least we know we can for sure reach now. Now I just have to decide if I want to go around here. Nah, I don't know if I want to do that. And I want to encourage you guys, if you're big on just slopping your wiring together, I totally understand the draw to do it, and I do it occasionally too on planes that I don't care as much about. But on a plane of this quality, I just think it's worth the extra effort, you know, to kind of get everything in there right. Someone's bugging my neck a lot more today than usual, so sorry about that, guys. Got my camera mounted to a helmet that suspends the camera so I can see. It's like right in front of my face here, so I can see when stuff is in focus or not if I pay attention. Of course, many times I'm co-witnessing, I'm watching over the top of the camera. I don't know if any of you guys have the goggles. I've seen a few, but then it's like 780p max, if I recall. I just don't know if I want to be limited to 780. It's not very high resolution. So if you guys have ideas on that, I'll listen. Doesn't mean I'm going to do it, but okay. So now the ESC, it's set where it needs to be set. This may end up moving, and that'd be fine if it did. It's not really, I'm not married to that position for the wire, but presumably it should be fine. So now really it just comes down to we got to secure the wire so that the bell housing doesn't become a problem with the motor there. And so I don't know if maybe the easiest way would be, let's see if we can do a strip of tape like this just to hold it down, because this stuff is relatively heavy, but it's extremely tacky. And I'm not talking about my jokes. Sorry, that was supposed to be a drum effect. We're just going to do this. Get a fairly sizable piece of it. And we've got a couple of different varieties. This real thin stuff might also be necessary just to get into a tighter spot for us. And this piece is pretty big. I'm just cutting it bigger than I think I need it. I'll probably have that. Okay, so now we can try to manipulate those wires into a position. Just like this, so that we know that they'll be safe. Okay, just like that. Oh shoot, now I need for the piece to be longer. I was afraid that might happen. Maybe one more slice. Oh, son of a gun. Okay. We'll see how that holds. Grab one more chunk of that. That'll be between the two that we just also applied. I'm going to try applying this a little bit different way too. I'll stick it to the tip of the forceps like this, and then I can control it in there real nicely. Oh yeah, got it right where I wanted this time. You know, and I guess that's better than having a bunch of, you know, like fiberglass or something in there. It's basically just removable still. Okay, so now that we have all that located where it's located, that just leaves, we got a little bit of excess wire here for the electronic speed control, and that stuff for now can just be tucked down inside. And we've got a nice equidistant length of wire here, and that's going to give us some flexibility on where we locate things, because really the last thing I'm going to be hooking up is going to be the ailerons. And the ailerons, of course, we're going to have to draw the wires through, and that's going to be done at the flying field. So guys, for now, I appreciate you watching. This is kind of a boring one, but it's a necessary one. So we've got the ESC in, and pause it, we'll do a quick test. Alright guys, rudder, throttle cuts on, and the stabilizer is working, and everything is fit inside with the canopy latched, which is totally cool. So basically the canopy's latched. Oh, don't forget landing gear. Throttle cut's currently on, now it's off. So we got some throttle, got a little rudder, stabilizer, landing gear's coming down, landing gear's going back up, coming down, chop the throttle. Oh, that's gonna be so cool, guys. Got the prop folded, give it a little throttle, let the fold, oh, that's beautiful. Close the gear. Oh, that's gonna be so sweet. You see we got just a little teeny bulge on the middle there. Throttle cuts on. Let's pop that off so you can see it. We'll just fold these out so they're out of the way. Release the prop, or release the top canopy. In my case, I gotta just apply a little bit of light pressure. Just there's some sticky epoxy, and I like the idea that it holds it in there tight, so I'm not gonna mess with it. I could trim it if I want it to be a little better. But as you can see, the receiver, I just stuck the wires down in there. That was the only step I missed. And then I took one little half piece of double-sided tape just temporarily to hold that, because I wanted to make sure that we wouldn't be interfering with anything. And so, oops. So the gear works, and it stays free of the receiver, but just barely. So that's pretty cool that that worked out that way. So I mean, in its final rendition, I'll probably have this held down so that it's got a little bit more clearance yet still. But I actually don't hate where it is right now. So the other thing is, you can see where the battery is. When it ended up working, see how these leads could come out the front. The main power lead there could just come out the front. But I do have to figure out a way to prevent stuff from hitting the bell housing. And right now, you know, I'll have a voltage alarm on here too. And this is a 1300 milliamp puffy old crappy pack that's destroyed. But there's nobody saying that I won't fly this thing on a 1300 milliamp pack. And then of course there'll be two more wires attached here, one for the left, one for the right aileron. They're not going to be going to a Y cable because I'll be having some flaperons in there, spoilerons. And so there'll be some jumpers that go downstairs here with the rest of the wires, and they'll come out in this general proximity. And I'll probably have like the plugs up here somewhere where they're just stuck out ready to go, and once I get my cables I can draw them in and plug them quick, because I don't want to have to go all the way down to the receiver every time. There's too much stuff going on in that area. So surprisingly, even with the battery there, it should fit. See, I'll show you. I didn't think it would fit, but it just does. Okay, so release the latch, push it down. See, we got that little depression on the plastic there. I don't know if you can see the little bump on it, but it's definitely in there. And let's look at the stabilizer response real quick. Up, left, right, up, down, and I have the gain on the master gain here on this channel all the way down, all the way up, all the way down. So that's auxiliary 3. So for quick, I can test it right before I get ready to fly, set it back to where I want it, and then I can come over here and I've got this switch to the gear switch and reversed. Okay, on, off, off, on. So really, this thing is so close to being ready to fly. I've got one major step left, and that's going to be to get the wings mounted. And I've already got a great deal of that done. And then there's a couple of finishing touches, predominantly exact positioning of the battery and exact holding of the battery, because obviously we don't want to depend on, you know, this little canopy pressure to hold that battery in place. So I don't know if that'll consist of just having like a larger zip tie going around that we can slip it into so it doesn't have anywhere to go, or if we're going to try to get it with a larger pack. The other thing is I may end up having to move this receiver to a different spot, like over here, or maybe even back behind that lever. I could trim that if I find that I don't need as much throw on the rudder, but I highly doubt it. So this thing may end up having to move. I may have to uncase it, worst case scenario. The other thing is I could tuck that underneath, potentially. And that wouldn't be the end of the world, because I do have this opening here. And that opening would be big enough for this thing to fit. So, for now, I think I'm going to get the prop held back down. I'm going to shut it down for tonight. But what we're going to hopefully be doing tomorrow is, depending on how the day goes, I may end up working long hours tomorrow. So I may not do anything tomorrow, but if I do something tomorrow, it's probably going to consist of having the wings come together. And that's going to be pretty exciting, so give you guys a real close shot of this again. And I know Grant L, I was talking to you about putting in a satellite on this, and at this point, if I'm that far away from the electronic speed control and where the battery lies, I may not need it. So, but if I do a satellite, the satellite's going to sit way back in there, way back in the middle of the fuselage, and then the extension lead will go through here, and then probably up where all the wires come, and it'll just plug into that little port right there. So anyway, that's my hope. Thanks guys for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Click the bell for notifications if you want us to annoy you with our multi-week releases.